Top 5 teams that need a good week for varying reasons. Not all these teams had bad weeks week 1, but some teams are in different stages. For example, Miami had a good week 1. I think they need to have a good week against A&M. I don't think that necessarily means in the long grand scheme of things, and number 5 is Miami. In the grand scheme of things, like I said, Jack, number 5 is Miami. Thank you. Jack doesn't do this every day.
I'm about to be so slow just because you made a point of that.
But number 5 is Miami. I don't think that means they need to beat A&M, but I do think that this needs to be a game that's competitive. I could probably have put Miami/A&M. Both these schools this needs to be a good game. This needs to be a game where you're like, man, I don't know who the better team is. In my opinion, I think A&M is deeper than Miami, and that's why I picked them to win. But I do think Miami needs a good showing this week against A&M as they, really get a true non-conference test here to see if this is a team that can maybe contend in the ACC. I think there's several teams that are behind, but if they can have a good day and maybe even beat A&M, that's going to change my opinion about Miami, possibly even going forward. Number 4, the Texas Longhorns. I think that Steve Sarkisian getting his signature win this week would be, the absolute storybook thing. And look, if they have a good week and he gets that signature win, then that's great. All well and good, But if they have another game like they did last year and lose a close one, I don't think that derails it. It just shows you that they're not quite there yet.
So why do they need it?
I just think that if they want to be who they think that they are this year in 2023, because I do think that a lot of their fans, I think Texas as a team feels like it's a college football playoff team, then they need to beat Alabama. So they need this if they really want to be who they think they are. Now, grand scheme, huge picture, long term with Texas, it's probably not as important as you may make it, but in the year of 2023, if they really want to be a college football playoff team, they're only going to play one team that's this good probably.
Yeah.
And if you are only going to play one team that's this good in the regular season, you better beat them.
I would say, in my mind, they need it because they need to be looking like they're peaking as they head into the SEC.
Yeah.
Are you going to go in and only be a conference champion, not even be a conference champion, and still be like, yeah, we're going to compete for playoff spots here? Or do you need to go in being like, we've already made the playoff that was tougher to make because there were fewer teams. Mm-hmm. Now it's 12 teams. We're in a better conference, but hey, we're still at that level. So that's why I see it as a need, because you're probably not making the playoff if you don't win this game. You'd have to be perfect the rest of the way. So they need a good week here for that longer term thing. I'm not saying like they really need it. I'm not trying to be that guy that puts that on Texas, but I can. Trying to build in that need. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, good point. Thanks for taking it even further, Jack. I got the ball to like the 7-yard line. You took it into the end zone right there. Yeah. That was good stuff there. Number 3, Texas Tech. After you lose to Wyoming, when you had as much hype as Tech has coming in, you're supposed to be 1-0, and now you're 0-1. Mm-hmm. And you've got a high likelihood with Oregon coming in, a very good team, that you're going to be 0-2. Not only that, there's going to be as many eyes on Texas Tech as there have been in a long time. So for Joey McGuire and what he wants to be able to do in recruiting-wise, you get this Oregon win, man, holy cow. That's huge for you. But if you go out and lose to Oregon, you're 0-2, not going to slow Joey McGuire down, but it makes his job a little harder, and it makes your job harder just in the immediate – before you get to conference of like, now you've got a team that even though it's out of conference, they're 0-2, their confidence is kind of shaken. What if Tyler Shuck plays bad? Is everybody around campus going like Baron Morton? They're like 0-2 is a place you just don't want to be. And I say that as we go into number 2, Baylor.
I think you've nailed these top 3, honestly. Yeah. Perfect order. I don't know who else could possibly need a win more this week.
Baylor, Look, they're probably going to win against Long Island next week. You know, you can't say absolutely because weird things happen.
Yep.
But 0-2 for them with Long Island next, then Texas, then UCF on the road in the first Big 12 game in the bounce house is not ideal scheduling.
No.
There's no ramp. It's just you are there. You're in and the fortunate part for Baylor, outside of like they've got some things, the teeth of their schedule is now. Like this is the hard part of their schedule, the hardest part. Where you have Utah, Texas, UCF in a month-long span, and now throw Texas State in there because they showed you how tough they were last week and rolled on through Baylor. Baylor winning against Utah, not only for the record and all that stuff and looking forward and what kind of bowl game would you wind up in if you get to a bowl game, if you start at 0-2, all those things. This for confidence and their ability to move forward, because if they don't win against Utah, I don't know how their confidence is going to get back to beat schools like Texas, UCF, TCU, and Kansas State. And Texas Tech, by God, they're playing them too. So when you've got those teams on the schedule, like you can't lose the games you're supposed to win, and then you can't take away opportunities to get big wins, right? So you've got to get big wins, and you can. This would be a huge win, defeating the two-time Pac-12 champ, rolling in, future conference foe. Huge win for them, but they cannot, and at the very least, they cannot play with the kind of, even if they lost the game to a team that might be better, they cannot play the kind of laissez-faire game they did last week.
This game for the Bears, they need to show some heart and some fight. They need to go out there, and I'm not saying they have to have it as close as TCU last year when Baylor was 6-5 heading into that game. Yeah. TCU was rolling into the Big 12 championship game, hopefully a playoff spot, and somehow they made it a hell of a game.
Yeah,
they need that somehow this week. Absolutely. Yeah. After this week, you start looking at, like, if you lay a goose egg, you start looking at the rest of the schedule being like, where are the wins?
Yeah.
You couldn't beat Texas State. Hopefully you don't struggle with Long Island. And then it's like, where are the wins? How do you even get bowl eligible? It's a tough schedule if you're at this level. We were looking at the schedule earlier this year before we saw a game. And we were like, 8 wins. Like you should expect it.
Here's the thing. They have 8 home games. They've already lost one of them. You know, to have 8 wins, means that you probably have to win at least 5 of those home games.
At least.
Yeah. Well, if you lose another one, now you only have 6 left.
The road games aren't easy.
Yeah, and the road games aren't easy.
You're the first Big 12 game at the bounce house. You play at TCU, at Kansas State. The easiest road game is at Cincinnati.
Yeah, but they have to play better. They absolutely have to play better. They have to show some fire. They have to show some intensity, because if not, you're behind the 8 ball. Something bad. Number 1, Clemson. Now, look, they're playing Charleston Southern. Should be a win for Clemson. But big teams have lost to small schools, especially ones. But Clemson needs to show in the next, not just this week, but in the coming weeks, that they've got some juice to them, some ability to do something exciting, because Monday night, and give all credit to Mike Elko and Duke for their absolutely stellar defensive performance, but Monday night showed that they have got problems. Like they can't playmaker their way out of a hole anymore like they could before. And that was
because they don't have playmakers.
Exactly. They have Will Shipley.
They won't take him in the transfer portal. The young guys either will transfer out or not pan out. Like you have, of course, you're Clemson. You should be able to have at least one Will Shipley, at least one high school recruit that's just the guy. But when he's not a quarterback, that's already an issue.
Well, look, they've got Will Shipley and they've got Cade Klubnik, and because Cade is very athletic, but if he doesn't have receivers that can separate, then this
isn't 2017 anymore.
Yeah. No, it's not.
It is a surprising amount of years away from 2017.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done the math lately.
Yeah. So, all right. That's going to do it for us.